She thought she was just managing an old hotel. What she didn't know was that the building held secrets, silent contracts, missing money, and a darkness disguised as routine. But Maya Williams didn't back down. Armed with nothing but a paper trail and quiet courage, she uncovered a multi-million-dollar laundering scheme buried in the walls of a forgotten South Bronx inn. This isn't just a story of crime. It's about transformation, truth, and the unexpected power of community. When the storm came, she stood her ground and lit a lantern for others to follow. Now, let's go back to where it all began. "Sir, you really shouldn't be out here alone." The voice rang out in the dim, rain-washed street of the South Bronx, where streetlights flickered like tired eyes fighting sleep. It was nearly 4 in the morning. The man didn't answer. Drenched and motionless, he stood hunched at the edge of the sidewalk, the long hem of his coat soaking up the dirty rainwater. His polished leather shoes sank slightly into a cracked puddle, as if he didn't belong to the ground beneath him. Then suddenly, his legs buckled. No cry, no warning. Just the dull, heartbreaking sound of a body hitting wet asphalt. His face met the pavement with a thud that should have shaken someone, but no one moved. Across the street, under the dim awning of a shuttered liquor store, 2 figures stirred, hooded, idle, and watching. One nudged the other, gesturing toward the fallen man. Their curiosity wasn't kind. It was slow, deliberate, and sharp-edged. That was when Maya Williams acted. She didn't think, didn't wait for someone else to step in. Her sneakers slapped through the shallow floodwater as she sprinted across the road. "Sir?" she called, kneeling beside him. Up close, she could see he was older, maybe mid-50s, not from around here. His coat was designer, his wrist bore a luxury watch. His wallet had slipped out nearby, half-soaked but still crisp. This man belonged to another world, one far from this corner of the Bronx. Maya looked up. The 2 hooded men were now just a dozen steps away. "Not tonight," she muttered under her breath. With strength born of urgency, she wedged her arms beneath his shoulders and heaved. He groaned, alive but barely responsive. Still, his legs stumbled forward just enough to avoid being dragged. Together, they half-limped into the side door of a small hotel, its glowing sign buzzing faintly. Velvet Lantern Inn. Inside, the hallway flickered with weak fluorescent light. The floor tiles shimmered gold beneath the puddles they left behind. She eased him onto the small couch near the laundry room, his head tilting sideways, his breath heavy with the unmistakable sting of whiskey. His hair clung to his forehead. His body sagged with exhaustion. And something else Maya couldn't name yet. She opened his wallet hesitantly, searching for ID. The guilt tugged at her, but instinct carried her forward. One of the business cards was edged in real gold. And Harvey Whitmore. Her eyes widened. Wait. The Harvey Whitmore? She called over to Anthony, the sleepy aide receptionist, who blinked once at the name, then twice, his mouth falling open. "Oh my God," he whispered. "It's him." Maya didn't hesitate. She grabbed the desk phone and called for a cab. No way was she letting this man pass out in a motel hallway, or worse, get scammed by a random rideshare driver. When the taxi pulled up 15 minutes later, she pressed a $50 bill into the driver's hand. "Don't charge him," she said firmly. "Just get him home safe. He's out of it." The driver raised a brow, but nodded. She helped the man into the back seat, his body heavy against hers. As she buckled him in, he mumbled, eyes half closed. "You're kind," he slurred. "Don't forget that. You're the kind that matters." She didn't respond, just closed the door gently and stepped back as the cab pulled away, its red taillights fading into the fog. Inside, the motel was silent. Maya stood still for a long moment, water dripping from her hoodie. The wall clock read 3:52 a.m. Just another shift. Just another night. Only, it didn't feel like just another night. Back in the laundry room, she peeled off her soaked sweatshirt, shaking out the sleeves. She wasn't sure why she'd acted the way she did. Maybe it was instinct, maybe it was something deeper. an unwillingness to watch someone else fall while the world turned its back. Outside, the rain slowed. Far above the roofs of the Bronx, a pale light began to bloom across the sky. Steady, quiet, unstoppable. 1 week later, it was a quiet Thursday just before the lunch rush. Maya was folding cocktail napkins behind the bar when the front door chimed. She didn't look up, probably Mr. Travers again, the guy who always asked for 3 lemon wedges and tipped less than a dime. But then she heard it. A voice. Soft, deep, and unmistakably refined. "Excuse me." She looked up, her hands froze mid-fold. Standing in the doorway, impeccably dressed in a tailored navy suit, hair neatly combed back, eyes bright and alert, was him. No trace remained of the slumped man she'd dragged off the street. He looked powerful, composed, and focused. Maya's chest tightened. "I believe I owe you a proper thank you," he said. The entire bar went quiet. Even Anthony peeked over the counter, eyes wide. Carla, the morning maid, suddenly discovered an urgent need to clean the table nearest to Maya. "I think the taxi did its job," Maya said evenly, refusing to break eye contact. Harvey stepped closer. His voice was calm, deliberate. "It wasn't the taxi that saved me that night. I didn't do anything anyone else wouldn't have done," she replied, crossing her arms. "Then it's a shame no one else does." His gaze swept across the bar, then settled on her again. "I watched you, Miss Williams." Her stomach flipped. "I'm sure you did." What she didn't say was that she had dropped out of college at 19 to care for her ailing mother. That she had worked 3 jobs, bartender, cleaner, front desk, just to keep the lights on while the previous manager skimmed money from the books. That she had paid, out of her own tips, for guests' broken appliances. That she had paid his cab fare because she didn't trust the world to be kind. "You're making a lot of assumptions," she said coolly. "No," he said softly, "I'm stating facts." A long pause. Then Harvey reached inside his jacket and placed a thin black folder on the bar. "I own this property," he said, "and several others." Maya stared at it, her mind racing. "I've been looking for someone to run this place the way it deserves to be run, not managed, led. You didn't just save me, Miss Williams. You proved who you are when no one was watching. That's rare." Another beat. "I'd like to offer you the position of general manager, starting today." Maya stood still, the napkins forgotten. Outside, the clouds had cleared, sunlight spilled through the windows and danced across the floor, but inside it was quiet, breathless. This wasn't just a job offer. It was the moment her entire story began to shift. "But this place," Harvey said, glancing around the dim bar. "The Velvet Lantern. It's been on the chopping block for months now. Poor performance, mismanagement, declining profits. I was ready to liquidate." Maya swallowed hard. Her fingers clutched the fraying napkin, and her voice came out sharper than intended. "If this is your way of kicking me out," she said, "you've gone for the dramatic." "I'm not kicking you out," Harvey replied evenly. "I'm asking you to take ownership." The napkin tore in her hand. "Ownership?" Her voice cracked at the edges. He didn't blink. "You're the reason this place hasn't collapsed, the only reason guests still walk through those doors. I ran the metrics, watched the security footage from that night. You didn't have to help me, no one else did, but you did." "No one gives away a hotel," she said flatly, "especially not to some underpaid waitress in the Bronx. No one usually saves billionaires from dying in the freezing rain either," Harvey replied, his voice soft but firm. Maya stared at him, caught between disbelief and something dangerously close to hope. "So what is this?" she asked. "Some kind of rich man's redemption quest?" His smile faded. "This isn't about redemption. It's about recognition." "I don't need your recognition," she snapped. "No," he said gently, "but you deserve it." The black briefcase still sat on the bar, untouched. She eyed it like it might explode. "I need time," she finally said. "You have it," Harvey nodded. He pushed the briefcase toward her. "Everything's in there. The legal transfer, debt cancellation, renovation budget." She blinked. My attorney will walk you through every step. And if you say no, I'll respect that. But I hope you won't." He turned to leave but paused at the doorway. "There's something about you, Maya. You don't wait for permission to do what's right. That's rare." Then he was gone. The silence that followed was deafening. Eyes quickly looked away, pretending not to have heard a word. Carla, wiping down the counter for the third time, mumbled under her breath, "Go. You gonna open that?" Maya didn't answer. She stared at the briefcase. "You just got handed a miracle," Carla added. "Might want to see if it's real." That night, long after the final drink was poured and the bar was closed, Maya sat alone in the empty lobby. The briefcase sat on her lap, unopened. Her phone was silent, no missed calls, no texts. Her mother was asleep in the nursing home. The walls echoed too loudly without voices. Maya finally unclasped the case. Inside was a folder of thick legal documents, stamped, signed, and dated by a lawyer she'd never met. Debt reports, now cleared by wire transfer. A renovation grant, a staff training stipend, all in her name. On the last page, a handwritten note. "You gave a stranger dignity. Let this give you the same. H.W." Maya closed the folder, pressed a trembling palm to its cover, and shut her eyes. "This is insane," she whispered. "There's no way this is real." And yet, it was. If it was real, her life had just changed forever. If you believe what Maya did mattered, leave a like. And tell us, where are you watching from? Drop a comment below. Because who knows, someone you care about might need this story too. Maya didn't sleep that night. She lay on her futon above the laundromat, the documents open beside her. The faint smell of bleach and old paper filled the room. The hum of dryers downstairs spun like a lullaby for a heart too wired to rest. A hotel? Her hotel? It sounded impossible, too generous, too risky. Nobody gives away that kind of power without strings. And yet the signatures were real, the notaries were real, every line was clean and legally binding. Harvey Whitmore hadn't just offered a promise. He had delivered it. Maya picked up her phone and called the nursing home. Her mother's voice was soft and tired when she answered. "Baby, it's 2 a.m, she murmured. "I know," Maya whispered. "But what if something happened? Something huge?" There was a pause, a gentle chuckle, fragile and wise. "You win the lottery or something?" "Worse," Maya said with a shaky laugh. "I think someone gave me a hotel." The silence on the other end stretched long. Then, "Well, damn." The next morning, Maya walked through the doors of the Velvet Lantern not as a waitress, but as its future owner. The air felt different. Even the old chandelier above the lobby seemed to sway with new weight, as if recognizing a shift in the room, a change in who held the keys to the story. And this time Maya Williams wasn't just part of the background. She was center stage. Anthony raised an eyebrow as Maya stepped behind the front desk for the first time, not as staff, but as something more. "Did you open that folder yet?" he asked. "I did," she said. He let out a low whistle. "So, what now?" Maya didn't answer. Instead, she turned toward the door behind the lobby, the one she'd only ever seen cracked open, usually when Carl, the old manager, emerged in a cloud of cigar smoke, yelling about linens or missing wine shipments. She paused at the threshold, took a slow breath, and walked in. The office was a time capsule of decay. Mold curled along the edges of the walls. A calendar from 2014 still hung crookedly above a stack of broken chairs. Dust coated unopened envelopes like snow. But beneath the rot was something else. Potential. For the rest of the day, Maya disappeared into that forgotten room. She combed through every file. She cross-checked every vendor. She called the numbers listed on the invoices. Some rang endlessly. Others answered with vague, confused voices. More than once she hung up mid-call, a chill running down her spine. By noon she had confirmed the worst. 3 vendors didn't exist. Elmage Cleaning Company? No tax ID on record. Metro Fire Systems. A P.O. box in Delaware, nothing more. An invoice for thousands in HVAC diagnostics? No such service had ever been performed. This wasn't just sloppy bookkeeping. This was a cover-up, a system designed to bleed the place dry under the guise of maintenance. At 3 p.m., Maya picked up the phone and called the legal contact listed on the documents. A steady voice answered. "Brenda Witt speaking." "This is Maya Williams," she said. "You're handling the Velvet Lantern transition?" "Yes, Ms. Williams. Everything is prepared. We're simply awaiting your signature to finalize the transfer. Do you have questions?" "Yes," Maya said, her voice low. "Why would someone gift me a business drowning in phantom vendors and fake costs?" There was a pause. "Mr. Whitmore believes in second chances," Brenda replied. "He also believes in your ability to fix what others deliberately broke." Maya's jaw tightened. "I'm not here to clean up the messes rich men make while they look the other way." "Then don't," Brenda said gently. "Make it yours. Burn what needs burning. Rebuild." That night, Maya stayed long after the lobby lights dimmed. She yanked down the faded curtains in the office, brewed herself a cup of stale coffee from the front desk, and spread the bills across the floor like a battlefield map. Her eyes were heavy, her shoulders aching. But her purpose had never been sharper. Around midnight, Carla appeared in the doorway holding a stained Tupperware container. "Figured you'd still be here," she said. "I made sweet potatoes. You want some?" Maya looked up, surprised and deeply grateful. "Please." They sat cross-legged on the dusty floor, surrounded by evidence of years of neglect. "You really going to go through with this?" Carla asked, taking a bite. "I don't know yet," Maya admitted. "Half of me thinks I'm losing my mind. The other half—" She trailed off, then smiled faintly. "The other half thinks I already started." "You've always been the only sane one here," Carla said, grinning. Carl sure didn't like hearing that. Carl didn't like anyone asking why he had a cigar budget bigger than payroll, Maya said dryly. "Take it over, Maya. We're with you. Most of us, anyway," Carla said. "And those who aren't? They probably don't deserve this place." Maya looked around the room. What had once been a crumbling, neglected storage space now throbbed with a strange kind of energy, like it had been waiting for someone to finally care. The next morning, Maya returned with clean clothes, a fresh notebook, and a list. She began by sitting down with every single employee, one by one. She didn't give speeches. She asked questions. She listened. Some, like Carla and Anthony, leaned in with cautious hope. Others, like Miguel from maintenance, rolled their eyes at the idea of a former waitress playing boss. But Maya didn't flinch. On Friday, she posted a notice on the lobby bulletin board. "Effective immediately, the Velvet Lantern Inn has a new owner. We rebuild from the inside out. If you're with me, I'll see you Monday at 9:00 IM. If not, I wish you well. Maya Williams." That weekend, she barely slept. On Monday morning, she stood behind the front desk with a clipboard in hand and a pot of freshly brewed coffee beside her. Her heartbeat was loud in her ears, like a war drum. At 8:57 a.m., Carla walked in wearing her usual faded sneakers and a bold new shade of lipstick. At 9:00 a.m., Anthony arrived, carrying 3 spreadsheets and a pen between his teeth. At 9:05 a.m., Jenny from housekeeping slipped in quietly, eyes down, but gave Maya a quick nod. By 9:30, 12 employees had shown up. Maya stepped forward. "I'm not an executive," she began. "I can't perform miracles. But I'm here. And if we rebuild this place right, together, none of us will have to go home ashamed again." Silence. Then a single clap. Carla. Then Anthony joined in. Soon the room filled with applause. Quiet but strong. Not loud, not for show, but real, real. Maya exhaled for the first time in days. The rebuild had begun. Maya's first official week as owner felt like trying to fix a leaking roof during a downpour. Every time she patched one hole, 3 more sprung open. The boiler went out by Wednesday. Friday's food delivery never showed up. And a guest in room 206 claimed a ghost stole her earrings. though Maya suspected the real culprit was a warped floorboard and a ceiling drip. Still, something had shifted. Employees started showing up early. Jenny, who once clocked out 15 minutes before every shift ended, now stayed late to reorganize the supply closet. Even Miguel, the doubter, grumbled less and repaired more, sometimes before she even asked. The inn wasn't just staying afloat. It was beginning to breathe again. There was movement in the halls, a pulse, a heartbeat. The velvet lantern was no longer dying. It was waking up. But behind every small victory, something darker began to stir. On Thursday morning, Maya sat hunched over her desk, surrounded by a fresh stack of invoices, a routine review, until a name caught her eye. Ryerstone Holdings. It wasn't the first time she'd seen it. The company appeared on multiple expense reports, everything from pest control to elevator maintenance. But Maya had never met a single rep. And the amounts? Always under $5,000. Just low enough to dodge most financial red flags. She leaned back in her sagging office chair, eyes narrowing. The listed address? A sleek suite in Midtown Manhattan. She grabbed her phone and dialed the number. 2 rings, then a robotic voice. This number has been disconnected. Maya's jaw clenched. She dialed another familiar name. Nash Financial Group, supposedly hired for a security system upgrade just 6 months ago. Disconnected. Her pulse began to race. "Carla," she called into the hallway. Carla peeked in, wiping flour from her apron and eyeing her warily. "If you want me to fix that ice maker again, the answer's no," she said. "I nearly got electrocuted last time." Maya laughed weakly but shifted tone. "Do you remember a vendor called Ryerstone Holdings? Or Nash Financial?" Carla's brow furrowed. "Ryerstone?" "Yeah. Carl used to throw that name around when he was trying to justify the books. Said they handled everything. Never saw anyone from there, though." Maya nodded slowly. "I think I'm digging up something worse than old ghosts." That night, after the last guest had gone to bed, Maya returned to the office. She spread every invoice and receipt across the floor like a paper crime scene. Yellow sticky notes marked repeating vendor names, duplicated charges, vague service descriptions. The pattern emerged. Ryerstone Holdings, Nash Financial, Eastgate Logistics. Thousands of dollars funneled into services that no one could confirm, and all during Carl's tenure. This wasn't sloppiness. It was a system. By midnight, her head pounded with facts too hard to ignore. She remembered the rusted key she'd found in the couch cushion last week, and opened the locked cabinet in the back of the office. Inside, cardboard boxes filled with handwritten ledgers. No digital backups, no traceable files. She pulled out one labeled March Laundry Service. Her eyes scanned line after line of transactions, names that didn't match any vendor database, services that didn't exist, hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars directed toward ghosts. It wasn't mismanagement. It was money laundering. She froze, gripping the book so tightly her knuckles turned white. Then her phone buzzed. A message from Anthony. "Hey, FYI. Guy in a suit came by asking about the new owner, said he was a friend of Carl's. No card. Weird vibe." Maya didn't respond. She closed the ledger, stuffed it into her bag, and locked the rest away. The next morning she called Harvey's legal contact. "Ms. Whitlow," Maya said quietly, steadying her voice. "Did you or Mr. Whitmore ever investigate Carl's finances before the transfer?" There was a pause. "The recommendation," Brenda finally replied, "was to leave the property clean. Mr. Whitmore didn't want to inherit complications." "Well," Maya said grimly, "he may have given me more than just a hotel." She took a breath. "I think someone's been laundering money through this place, and they might still be trying." Another pause. "I'll inform Mr. Whitmore," Brandon said, voice suddenly guarded. "But be careful, Ms. Williams. People who build systems like this don't appreciate it when someone flips the lights on." Maya hung up the phone. Yvette stood alone in the silence of the office, her back to the window, her hands pressed against the cold metal filing cabinet, her eyes closed. The heartbeat of the hotel still pulsed around her, but now it was racing. This wasn't just her fight anymore. Maya had inherited a battlefield, one where shadows had names and numbers could lie. By late afternoon, she gathered everyone in the lobby for an emergency meeting. The air was dense, the old chandelier above them swaying slightly, as if it too sensed something was about to change. "No jokes tonight," Maya began, her voice steady but low. "I need to tell you all something." The staff stood silent, Carla still in her apron, Anthony with a notepad tucked under his arm, Jenny glancing sideways, already anxious. "I believe the velvet lantern was used for more than just hospitality. I've found invoices, dozens of them, for companies that don't exist, vendors who were paid very well to do nothing, and I don't know yet where that money went." There was a pause. Carla stiffened. Jenny shifted her eyes toward the ground. Anthony finally spoke. "You think Carl was in on it?" "I don't know," Maya replied, "but what I do know is this. If we keep moving forward without cleaning up what's underneath, we'll be standing on rot, and eventually we'll fall through." Carla spoke first. "So, what do you want us to do?" Maya scanned the circle. These weren't auditors or legal experts. They were cooks, cleaners, receptionists, but they were hers now, her team, her people. "I need eyes, I need ears, I need stories. Anything strange, people who came by after hours, delivery drivers who made you feel off, vendors who never delivered. Note it down. Tell me." Carla gave a small nod. "You got it." Jenny raised her hand hesitantly. "There was this guy, a few months ago, called himself Mr. V. Slick, drove a black BMW, showed up late at night to see Carl, said they were discussing expansion plans, but something about him made my spine lock up." Maya wrote it down. Mr. V. Another shadow with a face. That night, she stayed late again. In the dim light of the office, Maya opened her laptop. Every name, every address. She entered them one by one. She mapped them to fake websites, disconnected numbers, shell company P.O. boxes. Then, buried deep in the comments section of a whistleblower blog, she saw it. "Briarstone is a front. Look for VK." Her heart stuttered. VK. She copied the message and dropped it into a folder on her desktop, labeled simply, "Proof." She didn't know how far this went, but she knew where it started. And now she intended to end it. 2 nights later, Maya stood behind the front desk, shuffling guest cards, more for appearances than anything else. The lobby was hushed. The only sounds were the soft hum of the vending machine and a pipe rattling faintly above room 203. Carla had gone home, Jenny was finishing a final sweep of the 3rd floor, Anthony was crunching numbers in the back office. Maya was waiting. At 9:42 p.m. the front door swung open. He walked in like he owned the place. Tall, smooth, precise. His suit was dark charcoal, flawless, and the scent of his cologne reached her before his voice. "Good evening," he said with a smile that never touched his eyes. Maya stepped out from behind the desk. "We're at full capacity tonight," she replied, cool but polite. He chuckled softly. "Shame. I'm not here for a room. Just curious what all the whispers are about." She didn't answer. He walked slowly across the lobby, surveying the freshly painted walls and new light fixtures. "You've done well," he said. "Brighter now, less suspicious." "Do I know you?" Maya asked, already knowing the answer. He placed a single hand on the counter, letting the silence hang. "Call me Vincent." Her chest tightened. "VK." He reached into his blazer and pulled out a sleek, glossy black business card. No phone number, just a name and a gold-plated letter V. Maya didn't touch it. Vincent's smile widened, but it chilled the room. "You've been busy," he said, asking questions, calling vendors that prefer to remain discreet, digging through files most people would have burned. "I'm just trying to run a hotel," Maya replied, keeping her voice even. "No," Vincent said, narrowing his eyes. "You're trying to play detective in a story you don't understand." "You're right," she said. I don't understand why someone like you would show up. Unless there's something worth hiding. His jaw twitched, just slightly. You're clever, he said, but being clever doesn't always mean being safe. The tone had shifted. Vincent stood straighter. The friendliness dropped. Stay in your lane, Maya. Enjoy the new paint, serve your peach pie, but stop chasing shadows. Maya met his gaze, unflinching. You don't scare me. You should be. Then he turned and walked out, disappearing into the night. No shouting, no violence. Just a quiet, bone-deep threat in a $1,000 suit. Maya stood frozen until the sound of the doorbell faded into the street. Then she moved fast. She marched into the office. Anthony looked up from his desk. Everything okay? No, she said, grabbing her phone. Call Carla. I want every lock changed, front, back, storage, all of it. Anthony's eyes widened. Was it? She nodded. Vincent Kane, he was here. To his I-check list. To scare me. That night, Maya sat at her kitchen table with a stack of ledgers and her laptop glowing beside her. She scoured public records, cross-checked addresses, tracked overlapping LLCs. It was slow work, but by 2 a.m. a pattern emerged. Vincent Kane was tied to 3 of the front companies that had bled the Velvet Lantern dry. The financial trail led to a larger firm, Westridge Strategies, a holding company with a portfolio of hotels across the East Coast. This wasn't about one property. This was a network, a multi-million-dollar laundering operation. And she, Maya Williams, had just put her foot in the middle of it. On paper, the Velvet Lantern was just another underperforming small-town property, barely breaking even, not worth the scrutiny. But someone had underestimated Maya Williams. She wasn't just holding on anymore. She was investigating, archiving, preparing. Maya spent the night methodically copying every document, link, and trace of financial activity she had uncovered onto a secure USB drive. When the transfer was done, she slid it into a small envelope and scrawled one word on the front: insurance. Then she pulled up the floorboard beneath her bed and tucked it deep inside. If things got worse, this was her lifeline. And the next day, things did get worse. At exactly 8:00 a.m., Jenny opened the kitchen freezer and gasped. The compressor had failed. Everything inside had thawed overnight. Soups, meats, pastries, all ruined. Water pooled beneath the unit, and the smell was already setting in. At 9:30 a.m., 2 fire inspectors arrived unannounced. Their tone was formal but sharp. After a hasty inspection, they issued citations. 3 violations, including a fire extinguisher that had passed just 3 weeks prior. At 11:15 a.m., a delivery truck reversed too fast into the loading dock, cracking the concrete and crushing 2 trash bins. The driver, pale and shaken, muttered something about the brakes slipping. By 2:00 p.m., Maya sat at the lobby desk, hands trembling as she filled out the insurance paperwork. Carla sat across from her, arms crossed tightly. This isn't random, Carla said. Maya didn't look up. I know. So what do we do now? We hold the line. That night, Maya called an all-staff meeting. She didn't share everything, only what mattered. The man who came here earlier, she said, didn't come to talk business. He came to intimidate us. No one spoke. When you stand up to a bully, she continued, they don't get scared. They get louder, more aggressive. But this place is worth fighting for, and if we back down now, we lose more than just a hotel. Miguel crossed his arms. We could lose everything. Yes, Maya agreed, we could, but if we stay silent, if we pretend we don't see what's happening, we lose ourselves. Anthony glanced at her. So what are you going to do? Maya held his gaze. We tell the truth? That weekend, Maya made a call she'd been avoiding. She dialed Harvey Whitmore. His voice, when he picked up, was low and familiar. Maya? You gave me this hotel, she said. But did you know what came with it? There was a pause. I suspected, Harvey admitted, but I convinced myself it wasn't my concern anymore. Well, now it's mine, Maya said, her voice steel. I need to know. Are you going to help me, or are you walking away again?" Harvey exhaled long and slow. "Tell me what you found." She did. She laid it all out, every phony invoice, every shell company, every suspicious visit. She didn't skip a single name, not even Vincent Kane's. When she finished, there was no silence left, just resolve. "I know someone," Harvey said. "Someone who doesn't owe Vincent anything. I'll bring him in." Maya closed her eyes for a moment. "Good," she whispered, "because I'm not backing down." Outside, the wind picked up along the edges of the South Bronx. Plastic wrappers danced across the sidewalks. The clouds overhead thickened into bruised purple shapes, threatening rain. Inside the velvet lantern, Maya stood in the doorway, the old brass handle cold in her hand. She watched the street, storm gathering. Her war had begun. The storm was coming. But this time, Maya didn't have to face it alone. 3 days later, she sat across from a woman in a navy trench coat, a press badge clipped to her collar. They met in a quiet diner in New Haven, far enough from the velvet lantern to avoid watchful eyes, but close enough that Maya could return if something went wrong. The woman stirred her tea slowly, her eyes never leaving Maya. "I read his emails. Listened to the voicemails. 3 times, she said flatly. "I know," Maya replied, calm and resolute. "That's why I didn't use the tip line. I needed someone with teeth." The woman gave a small nod. "Sarah Monroe, investigative reporter, Bronx Gazette, 4 exposés, 3 lawsuits, 2 city council resignations. I don't scare easy." "I'm counting on that," Maya said, sliding a small USB drive across the table. Sarah didn't pick it up right away. "If what's on here is real," she said, "this won't just take down Vincent Kane. If these laundering links go where I think they do, you're talking international banking, shell companies, political donations. That kind of truth can break more than just headlines." Maya's jaw tightened. "If they're guilty, let them fall." Sarah studied her for a moment, then took the drive. "Buckle up, Miss Williams." Back at the velvet lantern, the atmosphere had shifted again. The sabotage had stopped. No surprise inspections, no broken machinery. But the silence was worse, like the air just before a tidal wave. Every flicker of the lights made Maya jump. Every knock at the door turned heads. Anthony stayed late, just in case. Carla stashed a baseball bat behind the laundry room door. Jenny insisted on walking Maya to her car, even though she only lived 4 blocks away. And through it all, Maya worked. She digitized the records, rebuilt vendor relationships, and installed real security cameras, replacing Carl's old plastic dummies with high-definition motion sensors. She even renamed the office. No longer manager's room. It was now the executive center, a command post, a war room, the new heart of the resistance. Each night she'd glance at her phone, waiting for a message from Sarah. Then, one evening it came. "It's happening. Sunday morning front page." Maya held her breath for 10 full seconds. The headline dropped like a bomb. "Local hotel exposed as central node in multi-million-dollar money laundering scheme tied to East Coast Investment Group." Sarah hadn't held back. She'd printed names, timelines, cross-referenced documents. There were bill scans, transaction charts, foreign wire transfers, even a copy of a handwritten ledger from Carl tying payments directly to one of Vincent Kane's corporate shells. The story went viral. By mid-morning, Maya's phone rang non-stop. Reporters, radio hosts, curious guests asking if the famous peach cake was still on the menu. Then the police arrived. 2 unmarked cars pulled up just after noon. Maya was at the front desk when 2 detectives entered. One flashed a badge. "We'd like to speak with Ms. Maya Williams." "That's me," she said evenly. They led her into the back office, polite, professional, but firm. "What made you start looking into the suppliers?" one asked. Maya replied, "Because none of it made sense, and because they didn't think I'd ask." They requested the flash drive. She gave them a copy. They asked about threats. She handed over Vincent Kane's business card. When they left, Half the staff had quietly gathered in the lobby, watching from behind curtains. Maya walked out and faced them. "I'm not in trouble," she said. "But the people who use this hotel to commit crimes? They are." The breath of the room released all at once. That evening, Maya returned to the same booth in the New Haven diner, this time sipping decaf, her body thrumming with exhaustion and adrenaline. "You handled yourself like a pro," Sarah said. "Not bad for a hotel manager." "Technically, I was a waitress a month ago," Maya replied with a tired smile. "Not anymore. I just wanted a safe place to work," Maya admitted. "A place my mother could be proud to visit. I didn't sign up to unravel a multi-state scam." "No one does," Sarah said. "But when that moment finds you, you either rise or step aside." On her way home, Maya thought about that. The Bronx air was clean. No sirens, no shadows in the alleys, just the quiet hum of a city breathing. She stopped outside the Velvet Lantern and looked up at the sign. The light above it flickered once, then steadied. She unlocked the front door and stepped inside. Anthony looked up from the front desk. "You were just on Channel 7, he said. "Your name, your face, everything." Jenny peeked from the stairs. "You looked amazing, strong." "I looked terrified," Maya said, shaking her head. "Exactly," Anthony grinned. "That's why it worked." Later that night, after everyone had gone, Mayo wandered into the dining area and sat by the front window, watching the streetlights glow. She pulled out her phone and opened a new note. To-do list tomorrow. Start legal paperwork for rebranding. Draft job posting for security staff. Order new outdoor signage. Call Mom. Brady. She set her phone down and leaned back, finally allowing her lungs to fully expand. She wasn't at the finish line, but she had turned the corner. The road ahead was uncertain, messy, unpaved. But for the first time it was hers. 1 week after the article dropped, Maya stood in the parking lot of the Velvet Lantern and watched as 2 contractors loosened the bolts of the old sign. The faded yellow letters, once proud, now chipped and rusted, were lowered carefully to the ground. A few pedestrians paused on the sidewalk to watch. It wasn't just a new sign going up. It was the end of an era, and the beginning of something entirely her own. The new sign sat nearby, wrapped in a white tarp and secured with twine. Maya hadn't told anyone what it said, not Anthony, not even Carla. She wanted the first reveal to mean something. Inside, the energy was different now. The hum of new life ran through the hallways. Since the article went live, foot traffic had doubled. Local businesses sent flyers asking about partnerships. Strangers booked rooms out of curiosity, wanting to see the hotel that stood its ground. The news station still called daily, but Maya had stopped answering. She wasn't chasing headlines. She was rebuilding something real. The front desk had been repainted. The lobby walls now featured framed photos of South Bronx landmarks. Its murals, parks, old churches, the air smelled of cinnamon and new beginnings. Thanks to Carla's fresh-baked poppy seed bread cooling behind the counter. But Maya knew that no layer of paint could erase history. A rebrand on the outside meant nothing if the inside hadn't healed. That's why she agreed to meet Harvey. She hadn't seen him since their last phone call. He'd offered to wire a quiet deposit, what he called a small correction. But Maya had said if he wanted to make things right, he'd have to do it in person. He arrived without fanfare, no driver, no assistant. Just a town car pulled into the far end of the lot. He looked smaller than she remembered, thinner, his once flawless hair now streaked with gray. Gone were the polished suits, replaced with a navy sweater and worn black trousers. "Maya," he said gently. "Mr. Whitmore," she replied with a nod. They stood quietly for a beat, the breeze lifting the corner of the tarp that covered the sign. "You did what I should have done years ago," he said. "No," Maya said, folding her arms. "I did what you were too afraid to finish." He didn't argue. She turned slightly, motioning toward the building. "I cleaned it out, the records, the ghosts, the lies. But I didn't do it alone." "I read the follow-up," Harvey said. "Sarah's second article. You gave this hotel back to the community." "No," Maya said. I gave it to myself. He looked toward the workers adjusting the bolts on the new sign. What's the name? Maya stepped forward, lifting the tarp just enough for him to see. He blinked, smiled faintly. Fitz, he said. You can stay for the reveal, she told him. But don't speak. He nodded. Don't speak, he agreed. They walked together toward the front doors. Carla, seeing them through the glass, nearly dropped her clipboard. Jenny nudged Anthony, whispering something that made him choke on his coffee. Maya laughed quietly. Some things don't change. No, Harvey said, and maybe that's a good thing. Inside they held a small gathering, employees, neighbors, a few returning guests. Maya climbed onto a small stool near the entrance, hands gripping the edge of the tarp. She didn't need a microphone. I want to thank all of you, she said. You stood beside me while this place weathered more than storms. You were the anchors. This name change, it's not branding, it's a declaration. She looked to Carla, who nodded. Together they pulled the cover off the sign. Shiny brass letters gleamed in the afternoon light. The Lantern House. A place to belong. Applause started soft, then grew louder. Some guests whistled. Carla dabbed her eyes and muttered something about allergies. Harvey clapped too, but stayed behind the others. After the crowd began to thin, he stepped forward and handed Maya a brown envelope. What's this? She asked. Final transfer documents, he said. I bought the land outright this time, no leases, no loopholes, it's yours, completely. She opened the envelope, scanning quickly. Everything was in order, no clauses, no conditions. I don't want anything hanging over your head, Harvey said quietly. Not from me. Not from the past. Maya looked at him and, for the first time, didn't see the man who had once dumped a broken legacy in her lap. She saw a man trying, awkwardly but sincerely, to make things right. Thank you, she said, her voice soft. He nodded. Goodbye, Maya. Goodbye. He walked away without another word. That night, Maya wandered through the halls of the Lantern House alone. Each floor carried its own scent. Fresh-cut grass on the second, lemon paint on the third. The building felt alive, like it had found its rhythm again. She paused outside room 206. The infamous ghost room. She smiled. No more ghosts here. Back in the office, she pulled out a clean notebook labeled Phase 2. Inside, rough blueprints for a rooftop garden, an after-school reading room, a community lending library. But on the first page, in bold block letters, she had written, We don't just run a hotel, we hold space for everyone. She closed the notebook and left it on the desk. Outside, the new sign burned steady. No flickers, no shadows. Just a quiet, enduring light. Well, hoped. For what's good. A month passed. And the Lantern House didn't just survive. It glowed. Locals began calling it the heart of the neighborhood. The front porch was rarely empty anymore. The new sign gleamed proudly in the night, but inside, the heart of the Lantern House beat steadily. An old man sipped his coffee, quietly filling in crossword puzzles at a side table. A few local high schoolers sat in a corner with open laptops and notebooks, murmuring over homework. Even Rose from the flower shop next door had started spending her lunch breaks here, playing dominoes with Carla like it was a daily ritual. It was no longer just a hotel. It had become a second home, for people who didn't even know they needed one. The scent of lemon oil and fresh pine filled the lobby. The velvet chairs had been reupholstered in rich forest green, and soft jazz floated through the new speaker system Jenny and her brother had installed. He'd just returned from college, proud to help out. Near the elevator, a community bulletin board overflowed with hand-pinned announcements. Sunday night poetry, Wednesday book club, Friday open mic. One Saturday morning, Maya stood in the middle of the lobby, coffee mug in hand, watching a boy beam as he dropped 2 quarters into the vending machine. His smile made her chest tighten. She remembered being that age, holding her mother's hand at a cold bus stop, hoping someone would talk to them, hoping to feel seen. Now she had created a space where others felt seen. Carla passed by with a tray of cookies. "You look like someone about to cry or adopt a puppy," she teased. Maya laughed. "Depends on how good those cookies are." "Peach and cinnamon," Carla grinned. "Like your mama used to make." Maya blinked. "How did you know that?" "Because you talk about her every time you're tired, overwhelmed, or stubborn, which, let's be honest, is often." They both laughed. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the rooftops and the lobby lights glowed softly, Anthony brought Maya a letter. "Guy dropped it off," he said, visibly uneasy. "Didn't say a word." The envelope was thick and black. No return address, her name written in flawless silver ink. Maya Williams. She opened it slowly. Inside, one typed line. "You might think you've won. You've embarrassed the powerful. But don't confuse attention with protection. Some debts don't disappear. They wait." No signature. Maya sat down. The words buzzed in her mind like static electricity. But she didn't panic. She didn't cry. Instead, she walked into the office, opened the false drawer beneath the desk, and retrieved the secure file she'd started weeks ago. She labeled a new folder. 3H. Then she picked up the phone. "Sarah," she said when the line connected. "I think someone's still watching." The next morning, Sarah Monroe showed up with her camera and notepad. She read the letter twice, folded it carefully, and slid it into her jacket. The language is vague enough to deny, but specific enough to chill. They're testing your nerves. "They'll be disappointed," Maya said quietly. Sarah tilted her head. "You know you don't have to keep pushing, right? You exposed them, the police made arrests, you've done more than most." Maya's voice was gentle but steady. "There are still people who think they can silence me." Sarah nodded. "Then we speak louder." That week, Sarah published a third article, not about crime, but about Maya, the woman who turned a hotel into a home. It was a story not of corruption, but of rebirth. A forgotten building revived. Children dancing in the hallways on weekends, seniors playing bingo in the old ballroom. Staff who once whispered in fear now laughing openly in the break room. The piece went viral, but more importantly it spread. Former South Bronx residents living across the country sent donations and letters. A high school alum offered to paint a mural. A retired judge who'd grown up 5 blocks away mailed a handwritten note with a check. For the woman who reminded this block of its worth. And at the center of it all was Maya's steadfast watchful. The threats stopped. Or maybe they just became harder to see. But Maya didn't let that lull her into comfort. She installed motion-tingered lights around the building. She partnered with the local safety patrol. At Anthony's suggestion, she even hosted weekend self-defense classes. Not out of fear, out of resolve. One evening, long after the day had ended, Maya stepped outside with a mug of chamomile tea and settled on the front steps. The air was crisp. Summer's edge lingered in the breeze. Crickets chirped in the distance. Across the street, the corner bodega flipped off its neon sign. A young mother pushed a stroller past, nodded at Maya, and kept walking. Then a car slowed at the curb. Tinted windows. It idled for a moment too long. Maya didn't flinch. She watched, steady, unblinking. The car pulled away. But she didn't move for a long time. She simply sat there, bathed in the golden light from the new sign above her. The letters no longer flickered. They glowed, steady, solid, unafraid, because the Lantern House was more than a hotel. It was a sanctuary, a symbol, and for everyone who still believed in quiet resistance, in rebuilding brick by brick, it was home. Maya's spine straightened as the door opened, but instead of danger, an elderly woman stepped into the light. She moved slowly, her silver hair pulled back neatly, a cane tapping rhythmically on the sidewalk. She carried herself with grace, elegant, yes, but warm. "You must be Maya," the woman said with a soft smile. "I am. My name is Viola Kane." Maya stiffened. "Kane." "That's right," the woman nodded. "Vincent's mother?" Silence. "I'm not here to defend him," Viola added. "He made his choices." But I've read what you've done, what you've uncovered, what you've built." Maya said nothing. Viola continued. "Vincent wasn't born cruel, but he learned power too young, and no one taught him its limits. I couldn't stop him. But maybe someone like you can stop others like him." From the inside of her coat, she pulled a small velvet pouch. "This belonged to my late husband. He was an architect, built homes in this neighborhood when no one else would. I believe he'd want this to help what you're doing." She handed Maya the pouch, turned and walked away. Inside was a check for $10,000. Maya didn't cry. She just stood for a long moment, coffee still warm in her hand, staring down the quiet street. In her coat pocket, Viola had tucked a note. "It's harder to rebuild than to destroy, but in your hands I believe it will last." For the first time in weeks, Maya didn't feel like someone who had survived a war. She felt like someone who was building peace. Later that evening, Maya stood at the window of room 301, one of the few that overlooked the Bronx skyline. Dusk had settled, and the lights below shimmered like a soft constellation. The floor beneath her had just been refinished. The curtains were new. A faint scent of lemonwood from Carla's natural spray lingered in the air. But that wasn't why she came to this room. This room had once hidden everything: shady contracts, silence, and secrecy. It was where Carl made deals that nearly broke the building. Now it was empty, clean, open, ready for something better. Downstairs, the grand room was alive with music. The Lantern House was hosting its first official community gala, a celebration of survival, resilience, and rebirth. Local vendors donated food. A jazz trio played by the old fireplace. Laughter floated through the air like confetti. Children in hand-me-down tuxedos and glittering shoes darted between tables. Maya had made sure the event was free. "We've already paid," she'd said, "with every shift, every scar, every story." As she came down the stairs, she heard Carla's voice rise over the crowd. "Maya, girl, if you don't get down here and try this peach cake, I will eat your slice." Laughter erupted. Maya grinned, smoothing the borrowed emerald green dress Jenny had loaned her. Jenny stood on stage with a guitar, singing Nina Simone with the kind of soul that made the entire room fall silent. Anthony was by the punch bowl, passionately debating basketball with two retired postmen. Even Miguel, who once rolled his eyes at the thought of Maya running a hotel, was helping a group of teenagers haul out folding chairs from the supply room. When Jenny finished her song, the applause was thunderous. Someone nudged Maya toward the microphone. She resisted at first, shaking her head. But then Carla gave her that look, the one that said, "Don't argue unless you want to lose." Maya stepped up to the mic. The room fell still. She looked out across faces that had once passed each other in elevators without a glance, and now stood side by side like family. "I don't have a speech," she began, "but I do have something to say." She paused. "When I was 12, I asked my mother why people always called our neighborhood the rough side of the Bronx. She told me it's because people don't come here expecting to see beauty, and that's their loss." Her eyes lifted to the lantern symbol painted above the fireplace. "I didn't understand then, but I do now. We've been underestimated, ignored, lied to, but we have never been broken. And when this place was nearly devoured by greed, it was you who pulled it back." She looked at Carla, then at Anthony, then at Jenny. "I may have signed the paperwork, but you built this place. You turned a hotel into something more." She smiled. "A home? A home with light." There was a long breath in the room. Then applause. Not flashy or dramatic, but real. People clapped like they meant it. Not to cheer, to thank. And in that moment, Maya didn't feel like the girl who once pulled a drunk billionaire off the sidewalk, or the woman who received anonymous threats in her mailbox. She felt like someone who had come home. Later that night, after the final song, Maya sat on the front steps beside Carla, both holding the last of the cider in plastic cups. "You did good," Carla said, gently touching Maya's shoulder. "We did good," Maya replied. The streets were quiet now. Fairy lights flickered along the eaves. From inside came the soft clinks of plates being washed, and the low creaks of old walls finally resting. "I've been thinking," Maya said, "about starting a scholarship fund. Call it the Lantern Legacy. For kids in the neighborhood. Help them study hospitality, or whatever they dream of." Carla smiled. "You're not going to stop, are you?" Maya shook her head. "Not until this place becomes more than a story. I want it to be a blueprint." Carla raised her cup. "Two blueprints." Maya clinked hers. "To building the future." A soft wind rustled the banner on the front door. Maya looked up. The glowing words caught in the lamplight. The Lantern House. A place to belong. A car rolled slowly past. The driver nodded politely. From the window across the street, a child waved. Maya waved back. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring. More challenges, perhaps. Another letter. A harder day. But she knew this. Whatever came next, she was ready. Because the Lantern House wasn't just hers anymore. It belonged to everyone who believed in second chances. And it would continue to shine, quietly, boldly, unshaken. A light for the weary. A promise in the dark. A legacy made not of wealth, but of one name, one choice, and one relentless hope to rebuild. By the time Maya locked the front doors of the Lantern House that night, the city had settled into a rare silence. One that didn't feel ominous or strained, but earned. The wind brushing the sidewalk seemed gentler. The flicker of fairy lights from the awning above whispered not of endings, but of beginnings, wrapped in warmth and intention. She walked slowly through the lobby, her fingertips grazing the counter's edge. Every surface in this place now bore fingerprints of resistance. Every chair told a story of someone who stayed, fought, cried, or laughed here. It was no longer a business. It was a tapestry stitched with memory, defiance, and love. In room 206, the ghost room, Maya had placed a handwritten note in the nightstand drawer. "This room once hid secrets. Now it holds peace. Leave it better than you found it." No signature. Just a gentle truth for anyone who would stay next. But even peace has its responsibility. A week later, Maya sat in her small office, the executive center, reviewing a proposal from a local nonprofit. They wanted to hold weekly workshops in the ballroom, financial literacy, immigration rights, youth counseling. Maya didn't hesitate. She scribbled, "Approved, let's host them with food," and passed it to Carla, who'd taken over as assistant director of community programs. Down the hallway, a young intern named Elijah, barely 19, fresh from the local college, was laughing with Jenny while helping her inventory donated books for the future lending library. He had shown up one morning with nothing but a resume folded neatly in a backpack and a trembling voice. Maya hired him within 10 minutes. Because she remembered what it was like to be unseen. In those quiet moments, as the city blinked into morning or exhaled into dusk, Maya often caught herself reflecting. Not on the drama, not on the scandal, not even on Vincent Kane or the letter, but on how it all revealed something much greater. That power, when stripped of arrogance, could become service. That rebuilding wasn't about erasing the past, it was about outgrowing it. And that trust, once earned through honesty, could create something louder than legacy, belonging. She hadn't set out to be a hero. She didn't think of herself as one now. But what she had become, slowly, steadily, was someone who believed that kindness could be engineered, that fairness could be taught, that protection didn't need to look like power. It could look like peach cake, freshly baked and passed hand to hand in a quiet kitchen. The Lantern House had been built on shadows, but now it pulsed with light. What do we do when no one believes in us? We believe harder. What do we do when systems fail? We build new ones. And when threats whisper again in the dark, we whisper back louder, together. Late that evening, a child named Layla, barefoot, 6, with wild curls and missing her 2 front teeth, ran up to Maya near the staircase and tugged on her sleeve. Miss Maya, are you the boss here? Maya knelt. I'll take care of this place. Yeah. Why? Layla beamed. My grandma says this building used to be sad, but now it sings. Maya smiled, blinking back emotion. Well, your grandma is wise, and maybe you'll help it keep singing. Layla nodded solemnly and skipped off, humming. Maya turned and looked at the mural being painted along the side wall by alumni from the local high school. It was bold and bright, showing a neighborhood hand holding a lantern, lighting the way for smaller hands behind it. Below it read, Let it shine for the next. She whispered the words to herself. Let it shine for the next. That was the work now, not just to protect, not just to remember, but to plant something that would bloom after her. A seed of courage, a root of love. That night, before turning in, Maya wrote a final note in her Phase 2 notebook. Don't build for praise, build for permanence. She closed the book, placed it beside her bed, and turned off the lamp. But the lantern house stayed lit, quietly, faithfully, for whoever needed it next.